Hello and welcome to On the Way Moments, a podcast from St. Anthony on the Desert Episcopal Church here in beautiful and very warm Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm Will Strong.
And I'm Jill Kyler.
And we're your hosts. And on today's episode, we'll be doing one of our infamous segments of Just a Moment of a topic that Jill and I find interesting. And that hope you will as well. We talk about these more as reminders. A lot of people know the topics we talk about, but it's always good from our perspective. Mind you, we're not experts, but we do love to talk about things. So
we're opinionated.
We are very opinionated. That's exactly right. And so, Jill, what are we going to be talking about today?
Today, I'd like to talk about gratefulness.
Gratefulness, gratitude.
Yes,
I
yes.
like that.
Yeah.
So why this topic?
Well, we're blasted with negativity every day. All you have to do is listen to the news or go on social media, and you would think that there is not one good thing happening in the world at any given moment. And that's just not true.
No, and you talk about this, if it bleeds, it leads, it's one of those.
Exactly. It's like watching a train wreck. That's so much more interesting.
Yep.
So we need to really pay attention to the good that's going on in our lives.
It happens all the time, all around us.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So why do we want people to do this and to know this?
Well, first, you have to have a really good reason for doing something. Right. If you just go, oh, yeah, everybody else is doing it, or it's a slightly good idea, if you have no passion in it, it's not going to happen. Right. So living in a state of gratitude is like building a new habit. But you have to answer, why do I want this habit?
Right.
Because if it's just another thing to add to your list of things to do, you might be able to do it for a week, but I doubt it. Yeah. And then it just falls by the wayside, and you never really have a chance to completely explore what you were just scratching at the surface.
Right. Absolutely, for sure. It's just like working out. It's just like anything like that. If you're not into it, you're going to do it for a little while, but then it's just going to...
It's too much of a bother.
It is.
And then it becomes a chore.
Yep.
And then it becomes a pain in the butt.
Exactly.
And you avoid that.
Yep.
You avoid that.
It's like the time I tried to learn how to play the ukulele.
I remember.
I can play it. I can play one song, but then it became this thing of like, I would write it on my list of things, practice ukulele, and then I was like, why am I doing this? So I just crossed that off, and so
I had forgotten about it.
It's when I started out with a passion with it, but then it was like, this is ridiculous.
Well, you didn't have a good why.
I did not. No. I loved doing it, and it was very relaxing. But then it's like okay, so you have to have a why for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So actually, my why was, this is all side note, but the why was I wanted to learn one song. I learned that song. I guess I was done. We're moving on because I didn't want to learn any other songs. So,
what was the song?
I Lava You from. Remember the opening scene of the little short movie of. Inside Out with the lavas in the water.
Wasn't it something like Somewhere Over the Rainbow?
Kind of like that. It was that tune and that beat. Yeah. It was so.
Well, that was a great movie.
That was a good movie. Side note, Inside Out was a good movie. Not the first time I saw it because I was very tired.
No, and I told you had to see it again.
And we went and it was like, okay, this was solid. Yeah. So
the first time we saw it was the last day of a mission trip.
Yeah, we were trying to fly
slept through it.
I was so tired.
Oh, that was a terrible movie. It wasn't.
It was not.
A good movie.
And that's gratitude. Like looking back, this is kind of some of the reasons we are grateful is because living in those moments and remembering those stories. I'm very grateful and that I saw that movie because it really did kind of shape my thought process on a lot of the emotions that we have inside of us. And so there's many more compelling reasons to practice a life of gratitude. So what are some of those reasons?
Well, we go through a lot of investigation before we do these, even though it might not seem like we do.
Right.
And so I did some research. And one of the first things that I read about was the effect that gratitude has on your body.
Yeah.
Your physical body.
Wild, yes.
That when you are in a state of gratitude, your body releases these chemicals. And the chemicals really take over your emotions. And you have this feeling of well-being, and you're optimistic. People like being around you. Yeah. The neurons in your brain start going off, and it's like you're high on life, which is a pretty good way
thing, yeah. And it's interesting because those chemicals tend to be a mixture of the serotonin and the dopamine, and there's a list of other things. But like you can tell sometimes when you're feeling a little bit low that you're like, man, my serotonins are low, or I'm feeling low. And so one of the ways that by practicing a life of gratitude, you increase those, you're more optimistic, it helps you attain goals that, you become this person,
you sleep better, and you're more apt to exercise and follow through on exercise when your body is in this state of almost like euphoria.
Absolutely. One of the things that you had pointed out to me in your research was it makes your memories happier.
Oh, I love this one.
This is wild.
Yeah, and it's all about reframing memories, not rewriting history by any means, but thinking back on things from a distance where you're not caught in the moment of what's going on. You see how things happened that at the time were probably the worst things ever, that you were really dealing with some challenges. But when you put it into the big scheme of things in your life, if you hadn't gone through these things, you wouldn't be the person you are today.
Absolutely.
And not to say the person is better or worse than before, but you can use these, what were sometimes devastating challenges in your life, to make you see that without that happening, certain things wouldn't have happened. And we kind of think of it as on-the-way moments.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we can turn on-the-way moments, which generally could be negative,
they can be,
into something so positive in our lives. So I really, really like that. And these were all scientific studies.
It's
that
crazy,
were done.
yeah. Because I know I read some stuff. We listened to some other podcasts and whatnot. And one today that I was listening to on the way over here was, and it was kind of a little bit interesting because it talked about not making your memories happier, but living in that state of gratitude when something bad happens. Let's say a car accident. You think, well, at least nobody was hurt. Right. And if they were hurt, well, at least nobody, died. And if they did die, well, I'm really glad I had the opportunity to know that person.
Right.
And so it was just this like interesting, you're right, a changing of that, reframing of that, your mindset.
Right.
So instead of saying, oh, woe is me, woe is everything, it's, okay, well, that stunk, but I'm, in the long run, our memories change and it makes us remember differently.
I know what podcast you're talking about, and the person who was being interviewed was very evolved, in my opinion, because he took it to the extreme.
Yeah.
Well, someone had died, and then I'm like, boy, I'm really going to have to wrap my brain around.
It was interesting because that was like
one.
The one thing I remember, and it was a great podcast, but it was like, that's the one thing that stood out to me.
Yeah. Now that is someone who really lives in a state of gratefulness, and I'm not sure I'm there yet.
No,
but I'm working on it.
Exactly.
I'm working on it.
And that's the cool thing about this state of this gratefulness, and gratitude is, it's not something. It's an exercise. Mm-hmm. It's something that you have to continue to do daily, moment by moment, and
like
some
a
days
muscle.
Exactly. Some days it's a lot easier than some days. Whether we get up and I had a bad night's sleep, it's like, well, at least I got some sleep.
Right.
Man, I don't want to make my bed. Well, you know what? I like to make my bed. It's going to get the day going. I actually don't like to make my bed, nor do I make my bed. Oh. I know, but that's my own thing.
Yeah, so. I understand. I understand that.
So, one of the things that we talked about too is that when we notice people, you mentioned just this gentleman who was on this podcast earlier, people who show gratitude regularly have a different energy about them, a different vibe, a different frequency.
Right.
Could you speak on that?
Oh, sure. And it's not like a woo-woo concept of my aura,
Right.
which you can believe or
If that's
disbelieve.
how you choose to think about it.
Exactly. But you have to acknowledge that we all have a frequency.
Yeah.
Plants have frequency. The ground has a frequency. We do too.
We're matter. We're
absolutely
scientific matter.
And, just when a few people get together and they're talking about something, and then all of a sudden everyone's rubbing their arms at the same time saying, did you just feel that?
Exactly.
And in youth group, we always call this God bumps.
Yep.
Instead of goosebumps.
Right.
But it was when we were on the same frequency with one another and something hit us at the same time. And, you can call it the Holy Spirit, you can call it whatever you want to. But at that moment in time, we were all connected by the same feeling, by the same frequency. And I find being around people who just live their life in gratefulness have this frequency that you want to be near.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it draws you in. You want to be around them. They make you happy. Yeah. And you know that they're not going to be about something that's happening. Yeah. And people like that have been through bad things. It's not that they've lived a nice, easy life, but they've been able to take those bad experiences, and when something bad happens to them in the future, they go, I got this. Yep. I got it before, I got it again. And so those are the people you want to be in the sinking boat.
Absolutely. Absolutely, for sure. Yeah. And one of the things too that I during our research was about the interesting thing was it makes you less materialistic.
Right.
Showing a state of gratitude of the rich always want more and the poor are always told they need more.
Right.
And so when you're in that middle, when you're in that gratitude life, you're able to be like, actually, I'm pretty comfortable. I'm content. I'm happy. I'm
like a comfortable seat.
Exactly. I love this analogy that you gave me several years ago about flying. I don't like to fly. And you were a flight attendant, and you said that there's always this moment where you have through the plane where it gets a little bumpy, and then you have to find that sweet spot, and you hit that sweet spot, and you just coast then. And that's exactly how I imagine that life of gratitude is. You kind of hit that sweet spot, knowing that there's going to be bumps along the way,
right?
Knowing that things aren't always going to be rainbows and butterflies, but
there will be.
But it will, there will be. And we're able to handle those when you live in that state. It makes, you have more self-esteem, better self-esteem. That's what I thought was a really interesting study. Yeah. You feel better about yourself. You feel better about other people. It's crazy how just something huge but small we think about is.
Yeah. Well, I think you really hit on something when you said living through abundance.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's so much to be said, and not here, of course, but so much to be said about whether you think there's enough or you think there's not enough.
Absolutely.
And I think that there's so much fear in the world right now that there's not enough. Fill in the blank.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
everything's in a shortage.
I know, and every day it's a new thing, and now they're saying baby formula.
Yeah. Yep.
There's not enough baby formula. Well, that's going to put fear into every mother.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a, gratitude. Fear has no space in gratitude.
No, it does not.
Fear is an enemy of gratitude. Fear is just this thing that, man, I got to think I'm here, man. And we feel it. It's like bricks. And then when you finally start saying, okay, you know what? This is not a good thing, but I'm going to be okay.
Right.
And people in a faith tradition, in our Christian tradition here at St. Anthony, we believe that God's got us and that we're going to, everything's going to be okay.
Right.
And it's like I said, it's hard sometimes. Things look like garbage ahead, but we all just lived through 2 years of a pandemic, and we're continuing in that cycle. the beginning of it was not good.
Yeah.
And the middle of it was not good. And the
Well,
end
the
of it
beginning of it, we thought it was going to last 2 weeks.
Right, exactly. So we're like, okay, move along.
Yeah.
And now it's still okay. And so it's just like we understand that we fear is not beneficial.
No.
And the way we get over this fear is living in this life of gratitude, of love, and that pushes out fear. You know, I think one of the other things too that I think of is gratitude is always there. We always look for gratitude outside of us. You know, and granted, nature is is a great spot, but we produce that gratitude.
Absolutely.
You know, I don't rely on you to give me gratitude. Now, there is another study that said gratitude from other people. Like, I think we talked about this last night a little bit of if I give you gratitude and you don't know it, or if I say something great about you and you didn't expect it, that's like, oh, like it's that. Okay. And so now you're more apt to go out and show gratitude to other people.
Yeah.
Because you received that gratitude.
And, excuse me, that was an interesting study because when we looked up practices for gratitude,
right.
The internet is full of gratitude journals. Mm-hmm. Oh, boy, you can buy them every color, every style.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then there's practices of before you get out of bed in the morning or when you go to bed at night, you say 3 things that you're grateful for. And I'm not discounting this at all. This works beautifully for a lot of people. This is what appeals to them, and they can create a habit using it. But back to the studies that were made, they found that gratitude is produced more strongly by gratitude that you've received from another person.
Yep.
And they did this one study where they had colleagues write letters of gratitude, and it has to be honest.
Right.
It can't be smoke.
Right.
You know, it has to be how you really feel. And they would write letters about a colleague, and then they would read the letters aloud to the colleague.
Wow.
And then they'd measure what was going on in that person's body. And it was just amazing.
Wow.
It just, talk about serotonin going through the roof. It had such an effect on this person for weeks that they would take this and they were living in the state of gratitude. So they were grateful for everything they came in contact with. And I just, I found that fascinating. But another way of finding yourself living in a state of gratitude is through story and narrative.
This is interesting, yeah.
And it's because that's the way we're set up. Yeah. We live in story.
Absolutely.
Things matter to us in story. So when you hear a story, whether it's true or not, it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't make any difference to your brain either.
Right. Absolutely.
How your brain reacts to it, whether it's a true story or a novel or something.
Absolutely, yep.
But when you hear a story about someone helping someone else out of sheer kindness, not that they were paid to do it or anything like that, but we see these stories all the time of people who help somebody else on the road because of an accident where they pulled them out of a burning car, or people who helped other people during a genocide. When you hear stories like that, you just it just, you say it warms your heart, but what it's doing is your body is having a physical reaction to it. And when I had read this, when we were investigating this topic, it made me think of back in the early 2000s, a group of us went to Rwanda, and we wanted to investigate how we could help out there.
Right.
And it was an amazing trip. It was an incredible trip. Yeah. But one of the highlights, which I never thought would be a highlight, was we went to the Genocide Museum. And in 1993, Rwanda had a genocide where the two tribes who lived there, one tribe thought that that they should be ruling. And so they massacred the other tribe. Well, Rwanda is a country that's about this big.
Right.
It's very small. It's like as small as one of our New England states.
Wow.
And in 3 months, over 1 million people were killed, somewhere around that. And the tribes over the years had intermarried. So even though you say you're this tribe or you're that tribe, well, your husband might be this tribe or that tribe, and then your kids are both tribes.
Right, absolutely.
So this genocide, there was no clear cut who was where. And the men killed the men and raped the women. And then finally, there was very little notice of it on an international level. It just kind of was under the wire. You didn't hear much about it at all. And finally, when it came to an end, the losing tribe were all put in jail. Well, the winning tribe had lost so many people that it was the women who were carrying on. They were doing the business. They were taking care of the children because the men most of them were dead.
Right.
Except for these guys in prison. Well, the prisons couldn't hold them. There were so many of them, so they let them go. And they said, you have to go back and live where you lived before. Well, that was next door to the people they had fought.
They had just fought.
So the Rwandan women knew that if there wasn't some sort of reconciliation, that they wouldn't be able to live.
It wouldn't work.
They wouldn't be able to live. So while we were there and we heard these stories of how the women helped other women in other tribes, I mean, it was like a story that I couldn't even fathom.
Right.
And how can people do that? How can people be so grateful for what they have and then to share it with the people who basically tried to take it all away?
Yeah.
It was just, and so that story that circumstance in history will stay with me forever. And I think I want to be like that. I've never experienced anything like that.
Yeah.
But to have that sort of spirit of love and gratefulness to survive.
To survive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, I didn't. Yeah. And you said you guys went in early 2000s, and this was in 1993.
1993.
So not even
long.
like almost 10 years within.
Well, I think we went like 2006 or 2008.
Okay, so 15 years ish.
Yeah.
Wow. So very fresh. Still.
Very fresh.
Wow. And they
very fresh, but they knew that they were living out. They had to live out of abundance,
Absolutely.
not scarcity.
Absolutely.
But it all stemmed from this aura of gratefulness that they were all living in. So that's
really interesting.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, and that makes me think of, we kind of mentioned this a little last night about how, gratitude looks a lot like joy. Oh, yeah. But they overlap.
They do overlap.
And joy is something a lot more than happiness. Joy is a lot more than, I think joy and gratefulness are hand in hand.
I do. I think so too.
And this goes back to that because the ladies of Rwanda could have lived in that fear. They could have lived in that, anger. But they chose to live in the abundance of joy and gratitude of, we are thankful to be alive. Right. So let us show our love and our support to these other women and men and children. And so it's just that, what a beautiful story.
Yeah. And recognizing each other as people.
As humans. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just, I think that's sometimes, what we when we watch the news today, we kind of miss that these aren't just stories. These are people.
Right. These are real people.
These are living people with their own energies and with own stories to tell. And it's just this: how do we continue? I think, and especially like just in the day and age we're now, how do we live in this day and age? And I think if a gratitude journal works for you, do it. Right. If it's purchasing a salad for a gentleman behind you in a salad and go line who was honking at you, do it. Right. We live in abundance. We should be overflowing with joy and gratitude.
Right.
And we are, and especially here at St. Anthony, we have so much, and we're so grateful.
We are.
Yeah.
We are.
And in the great Episcopal Church in general. I mean, Canon Holly spoke about it yesterday. You know, we may be small in the Episcopal Church, but we're giving millions of dollars to our friends in Haiti and countries that need it. And, you know, we live with abundance.
Mm-hmm.
And,
we do.
Yeah.
We do. And as soon as we start living where there's not enough, there isn't.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Once things shift and it becomes this like, well, you know, we
better save it.
We don't know when we're going to need that. It's a rainy day. And yeah, you be smart, but also like joy and gratitude doesn't equate money.
Right. Step out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Conquer the fear.
Exactly. Because that's exactly right. Like I think sometimes people are like, oh, I can be more gratitude if I have this.
Right.
I can show more gratitude if, and that's everything we've spoke about. It's not the study, the research we've done.
You get the if, and then it's like, well, maybe I really meant if I had this.
Exactly. Ooh, I got that. Oh.
And it's not that great.
No.
Yeah.
And so just knowing that what we have and what you have, you are blessed with. And I always think of when you talk about, remember that old hymn, count your many blessings, name them one by one. If that works for you in a gratitude journal, do it. If that's what you do in the morning, do it. Like, it's going to help you in the long run.
Right.
So we alluded to this a little bit, but how does the church kind of fit in? And by church, I mean big church fit into this mix.
Right. Well, I think that for the church, worship is gratitude.
Absolutely.
So when we come into church, you can show gratitude everywhere, but when we come into the church to worship, we have the opportunity of leaving everything at the door.
Absolutely.
And we can make this building a sacred space.
Absolutely.
Where what we show is our gratitude to God. And it's gratitude for grace. And every moment that we have is God's grace.
Absolutely.
And if we don't take the time to stop and be grateful for it, you know, grateful. I'm so grateful for you two. I'm sitting here in this room that I'm grateful for. Oh, don't let these moments pass by.
No.
And when we come into church, we're in with a group of people that we can be grateful for.
Absolutely.
And that gets us connected. And when we're connected, we have the ability to accomplish so many things. Yeah. Because even though we may have different ideas about things, we can go to the same goal.
Absolutely.
And gratefulness gets us there.
Absolutely. It helps us find a blessing in every situation.
Oh, in every situation. Yep. In every situation, for sure.
And I think that kind of, you touched on that too, is when we're all there and we're all in this state of gratitude, it takes away, because gratitude, fear, and anger and jealousy can't abide together.
No, they can't coexist.
So a lot of us have that fear of XYZ, fear of say it, fill in the blank. Let's reframe that.
Right.
And when we find people, a community who is like that, and we all get on that frequency, we're going to be living in a community of abundance and a community of gratitude.
Absolutely.
And what a joyful place.
Oh, for sure.
What a joyful place. I mean, that's giving God that's glorifying God. Mm-hmm. And that's what gratitude is. Like you said, worship equals gratitude. And
right.
It deepens our faith.
It does.
Yeah, I just think it's...
And we should be grateful that we're here.
Absolutely.
Because if we believe that God is our creator, which we do.
We do, yeah.
Then it stands to reason he had something in mind when he brought us into this creation.
Absolutely.
And we need to be grateful that we are in the process of finding out what that is.
Yeah.
And that we live every day investigating, kind of peeling the layers of an onion to find out just what it is, what our purpose is here, because our purpose here is our purpose. And no one else can be Jill, can be Will, can be Shane. We are all here as individuals for a purpose. And as long as we live in a state of gratefulness of being able to find out what that purpose is, I mean, we're also in a state of grace.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. What a wonderful. I mean, I'm sitting right here, just grateful for this conversation.
You feel the frequency?
I do. I feel. I think I shared this quote with you, and it was a master class I took, and it's like, you are your own unique frequency, and the world needs you because you're a blessing.
Right.
And what a level of gratitude to get to know that the world needs you. We need you.
Oh, yeah.
And we need you at your best. And one way we get to our best is showing gratitude.
Right.
And
I think when we do show gratitude, we get those glimpses of greatness.
Absolutely.
Both in ourselves, what we're capable of, but even more in other people. We see what they're capable of that they might not know yet, but that we can be helpful in showing them.
Absolutely. And I think there's that commercial, I think it's a Dignity Health, where it's the little girl giving her brother a pep talk, and she's like, "You're not a quitter. You're not. Quitters don't do that. You're a champion." And then she's like, "And you're a star. You shine." Like, and the boy's face just completely changes and lights up. Like, what a way for us as not just as faith people, but as people who want to live in a gratitude state, to just go in and say stuff like that to people.
Yeah.
It's a smile. It's have a great day. We were in San Francisco the last couple of days, and it's a very friendly city. Like that was one of the words I would use to describe it. They were, everywhere we went was like, "Thank you so much for being here." I mean, it's just like, it was a little unnerving at first, because I'm not used to that.
How sad.
How sad. And we talked about, like, it's maybe sometimes where the heat can get to our minds. I get it. But it's like, we have that ability. We have that, not even ability. We have that opportunity. That's not the right word. I'm looking for, we have that calling to be those people who live in abundance, because we have so much.
That's who we are.
And that's who we are. Yeah. So we talked about a lot. Thank you for sticking with us. Again, not experts, but
no, but people with passion.
That's exactly. Literally, I could talk like 6 more hours on this topic, but we won't.
Yeah.
But I do want to ask you, Jill. What do we see? What would we like to see people do with this information?
Well, just probably just to think about it. Yeah. Turn it over in your mind, in your heart. Figure out what would work for you. But I mean, there's all these reasons to give it a try. If nothing else, it shows you live longer.
Yeah.
You live happier. You live in abundance. Who would not want that?
Seriously.
If they made a pill that they could show that this is what would happen if you took the pill, everybody would take this pill. Yeah. But here it's something that we can do on our own, and you get immediate rewards. Yep. You get immediate results. And so I just say, find something, find what works for you and for your personality and your heart, and do it. And do it.
Yep.
And be grateful. Yeah.
Well, we are grateful for you,
yes,
as listeners and viewers. That's all we got for today. We'd love to have you like our episode, comment.
We love comments.
We do love comments. YouTube, we're on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcast, we're there. You can also go to our website. It'll be in the show notes at the bottom. Just check us out. And we're very grateful for you. I'm grateful for Jill.
And I'm grateful for you.
And of course, we're grateful for Shane and everyone else who's watching and listening. Yeah. So until next time, we always encourage you to be on the lookout for those on-the-way moments and gratitude moments in your life. And until then, we will see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.